Welcome to Mr. R's art class. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Thumbs, subs, and ring that bell. Alright, so for this project, we're going to go ahead and take a 2D image, a two-dimensional image, a flat image, and we're going to go ahead and bring it into Paint 3D, and we're going to go ahead and take that 2D image and turn it into something that's three-dimensional, right? So that three-dimensional image will look like this. This is about halfway done. You'll complete it all the way. You'll finish the left side, right side, and then the different parts of the robot on the insides here. But this is what it would look like. And so again, we're going to go ahead and take this flat two-dimensional image and we're going to bring it to life into something that's more three-dimensional. And so the purpose of this project is to show you how all we really need to turn something from two-dimensional to three-dimensional is a front and side view of an image. So that front view is going to help out, and also a side view is going to help out here to let you know how far back some of these objects will go towards the back here. So for this one, we're going to go ahead and challenge ourselves and try to create a 3D object just using the front view of an image, and then go ahead and transfer that into something that's three-dimensional. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is we need to download this robot file here. So we're going to click over here on this ellipse. We're going to click on that where it says download, and there's going to be two different places where it's going to download. It's going to download here inside of Teams, and then it's also going to download on side of our laptop. So that's actually where we need to go. So let's go ahead and click on this yellow folder down at the bottom here. And that's going to open up some of our windows. So we need to go into the download folder where that file is actually located. And there it is there. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and drop that file into our folder that we're going to create for this project. So I have this window open, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Control on my laptop, and then I'm going to tap the letter N to open a new window that looks exactly like that. So I held down Control and the letter N. And I'm going to put these two windows side by side, so they're going to look exactly the same here. What I'm going to do on this window on the right hand side is I'm going to go over here to where it says Documents. I'm going to click in the folder that we made for this academic year. Go ahead and click on that. You could double click if that happens on the side. For this video, I'm going to go ahead and click on period 6, but you want to make sure that you're saving this inside of the folder that you have My Class, the period that you have My Class. And I'm going to go inside semester 1 or semester 2, depending on which semester you have My Class. And then I'm going to go ahead and create a folder in this semester for this specific project. So you could right click and scroll down to where it says New. You could click up here on top where it says Home, scrolling over to where it says New, or click on this yellow folder up here to create a new folder. So I'm just going to click on this one here. And I'm just going to name this folder 3D Robot. Click off, and then I need to go inside of that folder there. So you can tell all of the different folders that I am inside of. So I went to period 6, semester 1, and then I'm in the 3D Robot folder up here. And all you need to do now is go ahead and click on that file that is still in the download. So you could click on the name there, and then drag, and that'll bring that robot over to your 3D Robot folder. So now what we're going to do is we're going to recreate this robot here. You can get rid of this window. We don't need it anymore. I'm going to recreate this robot in Paint 3D. So let's go down here to where it says type here to search. I'm going to type in Paint, P-A-I-N-T. Make sure you open up the 3D version, right? There's two different versions. Make sure you open up the Paint 3D version. And I'm going to wait for this to load. And then I'm going to click on New here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to this yellow folder. You should still have that window open. I'm going to right click on the right side of my trackpad. Scroll down to the bottom where it says Copy. I'm going to click back here on the Paint window in the background. And I could right click and paste. And that's going to put the robot right there. Alright, before I let go of this image, I could click on Make 3D, or I could just go ahead and leave it this way here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold down Shift, and I'm going to grab a corner and I'm going to drag towards the top left. If that kind of falls out of the screen there, I can always grab this bottom corner, holding down Shift, and then clicking and letting go, and then you could readjust this robot here. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this one more time, moving this robot around. Right, so I let go from the corners, and then you can move this robot around here from the sides by just clicking and dragging around the screen. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and hit the shift key, hold it down, and I'm going to pull towards the bottom right one more time. And you could leave these two side by side if you like. You could create this robot here on top of this completed image, or on top of this image here that's almost completed but not colored in. All right, so I'm going to go up here to where it says 3D shapes. I'm going to click on that, and now I'm going to use these 3D objects here to recreate this robot in 3D, right? So we're creating this robot, which started out in 2 dimensions, and we're going to go ahead and create this robot in 3D now. So you could color select using this eyedropper tool. So I could click on that, and I could click on this gray here, and now my cube is going to be that color. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this space, and there's the color that I selected. And what I could do is I could place it over the robot's head and then scale it down just by grabbing a corner and then just covering the head just like that. So this is kind of a good reason to put the other robot right next to each other if you just don't want to use this as a reference. So I'm just going to cover this up. It's kind of like we're coloring it in a 3D space. Alright, so I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to go back to 3D shapes. And now I have another square here. Same color gray, so I don't need to use the eyedropper tool. And I'm just going to click here on this main screen and then drag and then resize. And these could be, for the shoulders, those could be spheres if you'd like. Going back to 3D shapes. Or you could even use these hemispheres if you want. So you could use maybe a sphere for the elbow, and then maybe for the shoulder you could use the hemispheres. So there it is there. And all I have to do is rotate. So I'm going to use this rotation tool up here. So I'm going to rotate it on the Z-axis. And you could zoom in here if you want. So I'm going to click and drag to the right to zoom in a little while. Just readjusting, resizing, scaling down this image. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to occasionally go into 3D mode to make sure that these parts are lining up here. So I'm going to go to 3D view, and you can kind of see that the shoulder is a little bit in front of the body here, and then even the head of this robot, it might be a little bit too close to the front of the robot. So I could go ahead and hit this adjustment button here, which is going to adjust how close this object is to us as the viewer. I could do the same thing with the head here, selecting it with the left side of my mouse and then moving back to maybe center it with the body. And now I'm going to go click off of 3D view, and I'm going to continue with maybe a cylinder. So I'm going to go back to 3D shapes. You can probably choose any of these two here. So this is a cylinder, and this would be a tube. So I'm going to go ahead and click on a cylinder for this one here. So I still have that same color selected, so I don't have to use the eyedropper tool to pick a new color yet. I'm going to click on the screen, and then I'm going to adjust it on the Z-axis. Maybe move it to the side here to get the angle right. And then I'm going to go ahead and scale that down. You can have the cylinder go through the elbow. And then you want to go back in 3D view, and just to make sure that that cylinder, that arm is going right into that shoulder, maybe centered. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into 3D view to see if this arm here is going directly into that shoulder there. So I'm going to hold down Alt, A-L-T, next to the space bar. I'm going to hold that down, and then I'm going to right click to rotate around this tube here, this cylinder that we create. So I'm going to go in 3D view. I'm in 3D view, but I want to rotate a little bit further. So I'm going to hold down Alt and then right click. And I can see that this shoulder, this isn't really in line with this arm here. So I'm going to click on the arm. I'm going to click off of 3D view. And I know I have it selected because it's highlighted here in blue. And then I'm going to go ahead and move it back just a little bit. And then I need to go back in 3D view. And then it looks pretty much in line with the shoulder socket there. So I'm going to go back on 3D view, make sure 3D view is off. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this elbow. Going back to 3D shapes. I'm going to choose a sphere for this one. And I'm going to go ahead and scale this down. And then I'm going to go ahead and create another cylinder. Maybe I want to make sure that this elbow is in line with the upper arm and the shoulder. So I'm going to go back to 3D view real fast. And you can see that I do need to make an adjustment. So I'm going to click off of 3D view, making sure that that elbow is selected. And then move it back slightly. And that looks about right. And then I can go back in 3D view. Check from the side, and that looks about right. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and add the forearm part of this robot here. So I'm going to click back on cylinder, click back on the center of that drawing there. I'm going to grab a corner to scale it down evenly. If you don't grab a corner and you grab these sides here, these edges here, it's not going to evenly size down this shape of the cylinder. Some of the sides are going to be a little bit more stretched out, so you want to make sure you grab these corners and then adjust the length of these here. Alright, I'm going to go in 3D view to see if I need me to move it back just a little bit. I do, so I'm going to make sure it's selected. It's in blue. Click off of 3D view and then move it back just a bit. That looks good there. And then I have these arms here, this claw. Go back to the 3D shapes, and you could use the sharp edge tool to maybe do that shape there. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hover my mouse towards the bottom, down over here. Move to the side. Sharp edge tool. And this could be, each part of these claws here could be 3 different parts. Or you can maybe get away with 2 parts here. So I'm clicking, going to a corner, clicking off, clicking on this other corner, letting go of my mouse, clicking here on this corner, and then I'm going back to the original point there, which is at that circle. Alright, so there's that claw. Let's see what that looks like from the side. Right, so it's almost as wide as the body there, and I don't want that. So what I could do is, from this view, I'm going to go ahead and bring this side closer to the front. Same thing with the front, maybe bring that towards the center of the forearm of this claw. Click off 3D view, see what that looks like. You could always rotate around this object, so you could go in 3D view. You could even zoom in here, and you could rotate around this object. Oh, you want to let's make sure that that claw is selected there. So clicking on the blue, then so it'll rotate around that object there. If you hold down Alt and the left mouse button, it'll shift the whole camera view. Whereas if you hold Alt and the right side of your mouse, it'll rotate around that object. Right, so I kind of want to use Alt, and I want to move down, so I'm holding Alt and the left side of my button to move my camera down, or our view down, and then I'm going to zoom in, but that looks about right there, so I'm going to click off 3D view, and then I'm going to continue on with this other side of the claw. Going back to 3D shapes, sharp edge tool, and then I'm going to finish off this bottom part of the claw here. Same color selected. Looks a little bit rounded, so maybe there are some edges here that I can add in. and then just returning back to the point that we started out with. There might even be some rotation that you could do with this claw. Looks like it's a little bit rotated. And it might just be because it's really wide. So I'm going to hit undo. I'm going to recreate this one more time. So now I'm going to go ahead and create this bottom part of the claw. So I'm going to click over here which has the sharp edge tool, making sure I'm in 3D shapes. I'm still using the same color here. And now I'm going to click on these. And then returning back to the point that I started out with. Now I'm going to go in 3D view. Again, you can see where this bottom part of the claw is elongated, so I'm going to grab this edge here. This edge is represented by this little square. Getting close to the center. Same thing with the front of the claw. And I could rotate around this shape, right? So I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to rotate by holding down Alt and the right side of my trackpad by clicking and not letting go. So it looks about centered there. You can even make adjustments with this top part if you want to bring it up a little bit to go into this tube here. You can also add maybe another rectangle to help finish off the forearm of the robot. Clicking off 3D view. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and create the right side of this claw here. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in this area. So I'm going to select something that's in this area and then zoom in. And finish off the claw there. So I'm going to go back to 3D shapes. Click my sharp edge tool. And then go ahead and finish off this hand. Or this claw. And then I'm going to go 3D view. Maybe rotate around this object a little bit more. So I'm going to hold down Alt and the right side of my trackpad to rotate around that object. Grab the back side, try to center as best as possible, front side, center as best as possible, and then click off 3D view. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the bottom part of that claw there. Clicking back on the sharp edge tool, making sure I'm in 3D shapes, clicking just below that object. And then I'm going to go in 3D view to check the length of this, shorten up a bit. You can rotate it around the back to see if it needs to be a little bit shorter. Clicking off 3D view, I'm going to zoom out here. And then I'm going to go ahead and finish off the left side of this leg. Still using the same colors here, so 3D shapes. Cylinder, clicking towards the center of that drawing. Grabbing the corners here to evenly scale down this. You probably want to make it 2 parts, right? Because this does need a bend here, so I just need to make that shorter. Gotta pretend that this robot can actually walk. Alright, so now you can start duplicating some of these parts here that are really similar. So I'm going to right click on this cylinder, copy, and then I'm going to right click and paste. And then go ahead and move that down. And then this foot here, that's probably going to be one of those hemispheres. So I'm going to go back to 3D shapes, click on this hemisphere, click on this screen. I'm going to use this right side here just because it's a little bit covered. Grabbing a corner to evenly scale out this shape, covering up the outline. And I want that foot, it's going to be the front side of the foot, so I want it to be in front of the leg. So I'm going to go back to 3D view just to check some of these other shapes at the same time. And that looks about right. Maybe I want to move that hemisphere a little bit further back though. So with that hemisphere selected, going back to 3D view and maybe try to move it back just a little bit. So it's touching the bottom part of the leg. Click on 3D view, see what that looks like. And you can probably even bring a little bit further forward. Clicking on this Z-axis position. And just bring it just a little bit forward there. 3D view to see what it looks like. Maybe a little bit further back. And that looks about right there. Okay, so now probably another hemisphere for this antenna. What we need to change the rotation of this. I'm going to go counterclockwise, maybe 90 degrees. And I'm going to scale it down. And then zoom in. I'm going to hold down Alt and the left side of my trackpad. There we go. Probably make sure it's selected, go to 3D view, and you do need to bring it back just a bit. So click off of 3D view and then use the Z axis tool to try to center it as best as possible. Let's see what that looks like. Going back to 3D view. And that's about even on the side of the head. Making sure 3D view is off. So for this antenna here, I'm going to click off of the Sharp Edge tool. I'm going to click over here on the 3D tube brush. For the shape of this, I'm going to click on shape of tube. I'm just going to choose this cylinder shape here. I changed the color to black. Right, originally it was this gray here, so I'm just going to choose this black. And if you hover towards the side, you're going to have this slide bar here. I'm going to click down. The thinnest that this could go is just going to be 10 pixels. If you go smaller than that, then it's actually going to give you an error message. So make sure it's 10 or above. On taper, I'm going to make sure that none is selected. You can see what these other ones do. Some of these get a little bit thinner towards the end, some of them get a little bit wider. And what I could use, I could select this shape. I'm going to bring it in towards the ear a little bit closer, and then maybe put a little sphere at the end of this here, just so it doesn't look like a little cylinder falling off. I'm going to zoom out, scale that sphere down. I'm going to zoom in just a bit. Scale it so maybe it's just a little bit wider than that antenna. If this robot was a little bit bigger, that would actually help this antenna appear to be a little bit thinner than it actually is. So I'm going to go from the side view here just to make sure everything's aligned. And then I do need to bring that antenna back. So making sure it's selected, I'm going to move it back just a bit. There you go. Even this antenna here looks like it needed to be adjusted, so making sure it's selected, I need to bring it forward just a bit. And then probably click back on that sphere to bring it forward as well. I might even have to move it up just a bit. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and create this bulb that's on the top of the head. You can also create some of these lights. So I'm going to select this color of the light. There's probably a couple different ways that you could do this here. You could probably grab the hemisphere. I'm going to click here. And then I'm actually going to grab the sides, which is something we haven't done before, right? We've normally just grabbed the corner, so we're going to grab a side. Maybe shorten up this side a little bit more. And then push down the top. So that's one way to do it. Go to 3D view. And then I just need to shorten up the side. So I actually need to go up a little bit. So I'm going to hold down Alt. And then the left side of my trackpad just to make this bulb a little bit shorter. Grabbing the back side. Try to center this on the top of the head. And let's see what that looks like. Alright, then you could add this like little filament inside of the bulb there. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add the left side of the eye of this robot. I'm going to add one of these hemispheres. Making sure I still have that light color selected. Clicking there, I need to go ahead and rotate it on the x-axis, 90 degrees. And then I'm going to scale it down. I'm going to grab a corner in this case because I want to evenly scale it down. You could probably even bring this over here. And then bring it on over towards the side. Going to 3D view to see how much I need to move that eyeball back. Making sure it's selected. and then pushing towards the back there till it interacts with that top side of the head. All right, there we go. And then we're going to add this mouth here. So you can probably do that a couple different ways. I'm going to grab one of these cubes. Let's make sure that we have the color selected first. So eyedropper tool, color, cube selected. I'm going to click on the side here. Maybe line it up with this mouth since it's still visible. I'm going to scale it down for now just to check the width. And then I'm going to go ahead and just squish it down just a bit. And that looks about right. Bring it on over. Or you could do maybe each of these individually and then put them side by side. So when I say individually, like you can make these really small and then make a bunch of these side by side. So a couple ways to do that. So I'm just going to recreate this cube here. So got that cube there. Scale it down. Make it smaller. Bring it on over. 3D view. And this part doesn't need to go all the way through the head there. And then I'm going to make sure it's still selected though. And then move it a little bit further back. And then I'm going to go ahead and add this green light. Probably do a hemisphere. Make sure that that green light is selected. Click. Rotate on the x-axis 90 degrees. Scale it down by grabbing a corner. This one's going to be really small, so we're going to have to zoom in. Holding down Alt and the left side of my trackpad. Maybe scale this a little bit further. And it's still selected, but it's hidden within the body of this robot. So I'm going to go into, you don't really need to go in 3D view because we know it's in there because it's highlighted. So I'm just going to grab this position tool and then bring it towards the front until it interacts with the body there. Click off. That looks about good. You can add this extra piece here, then the drawer. I'm going to show you how to select on some of these objects. So I'm going to select that, holding down Shift, and then left clicking, holding down. I'm still holding Shift down, and I'm going to click the elbow, still holding Shift down, clicking the forearm, still have the Shift down, and now I have 4 pieces down here. And if they get hard to select, you could just click off, holding down Shift, and then I'm clicking and dragging to select those shapes, and then these might be a little bit easier to select. So still holding Shift down and left side of my trackpad to click. So I have that selected. What I'm going to do is I'm going to group, and then I'm going to right click, copy, and now I'm going to click off of that shape, right click and paste, and have a duplicated arm, but it needs to be flipped and rotated. So I'm going to right click, rotate and flip, and then I flipped horizontally. And then I'm going to go ahead and move this over. Same thing with the leg. I'm going to hold down Shift and click, hold down Shift and click, hold down to keep Shift down and left click. Or like I said, you could hold Shift down and select everything by clicking and dragging the left side of your mouse. If that doesn't work perfectly, you just select anything that didn't get selected and still holding Shift down. I'm going to, you could right click and group or just go to group over here. Right click and copy with those objects still selected. Right click and paste. This one you don't need to, maybe you need to a little bit. So we could flip this. So just moving it to the side, right clicking, flipping and rotating. I'm going to flip horizontally. And then you might want to think about adding maybe another cylinder here for the kneecap, and then you would add this drawer, maybe some 3 buttons here, and then this meter. So get creative. The only thing I'll probably go back and maybe adjust and maybe figure out a way to make a thinner antenna. But like I said, if you scale this up and this, if you scale everything but the antenna, this antenna might actually look okay. Right, so it looks a little bit weird because it's a lot wider than it is in the image. But if you scale up everything, but the antenna, then the thickness of this antenna might actually look okay once you scale it up. So play around with it. If we don't finish, we need to make sure that we are saving this image here. So I'm going to go up here to Menu, Save As, and Paint 3D Projects. I need to save as a Paint 3D project. I don't want to save it as an image, a 3D model, or a video. We're still going to continue working on this in the future. So I want to save it as a Paint 3D project. And for a Paint 3D project, it's going to save inside of the program itself. We can't actually save this in the folder for this specific project. So this is just going to be saved inside of Paint 3D. We need to go back to Paint 3D if we want to open this and continue to work on it. So again, this is 3D Robot. And I'm going to save in Paint 3D. Make sure you save often, because if you don't save until the very end, it could take a little while here to actually save. Now I'm going to go back to Paint 3D and then also save it as an image. So Menu, Save As, Image, and a PNG is okay. I'm going to go ahead and click on Save. And then I need to find the folder for this project here. So I'm going to click on the left-hand side where it says Documents, the academic year that we're currently in, the period that you have in my class, the semester we're currently in, and then the name of the project. And then I'm just going to rename this 3D Robot. Click on Save. Click back on the folder just to see what that looks like. And there's my robot there. And then you go back to Teams, and then these would be the 3 files that you upload into Teams. So you would go back to the bottom where it says attach of the assignment, and then locate those files. You would upload from this device, and you will locate those files, and then you would turn them in. Alright, so if you have any questions of how to bring the image of the original robot into Paint 3D, if you have any questions of how to create any shapes in 3D, or how to change the colors for some of these objects or these forms, go ahead and let me know. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And feel free to watch any of the other related videos.